Well, welcome back. See it? So, we're on the subject of the two truths, which mean what? The two realities, right? Which are
Deceptive reality and ultimate reality.
deceptive reality and ultimate reality. What is ultimate reality? Let's start with deceptive reality. What's deceptive reality?
Conventional reality. Things are what they appear to be. They're self-existent.
Deceptive reality is what's all around us, right? It's our world, our life, our existence. It's normal existence, right? It's called deceptive reality because it appears to be one way, which is different than the way it really is. So it's deceptive, right? It appears to be one way, but in truth, it's another way. Right? How does it appear to be? Self-existent. It appears to be arising and existing from its own side, right? In our world, in our reality, it appears that things just are, right? Something comes into being, something happens, it has a nature, it has an identity. It's like a radio transmitter, we're like radio receivers. It broadcasts to us, I'm a jerk. I pick up, you're a jerk. And you're a jerk, right? We think that's how things truly exist, right? But it's deceptive in that they don't really exist that way. In fact, they exist such that we take in data through our senses and we process it and our mind conceptualizes it into something, right? They're a jerk. Whatever it might be. They're lovely, whatever it might be, right? And that the thing exists as that for us, independent upon our perceiving it and conceptualizing it that way. That's how things exist in our world, really. Right? Ultimate reality is this thing which, if you come in contact with it, it's the higher reality, it's the highest reality, it's the ultimate reality, level of reality, ultimate truth. It's this thing which, if you come in contact with it for even a brief time, once in your existence, it will lead to the end of all of your suffering forever. If you can make contact with this thing, then you can attain nirvana and Buddhahood. And if you do not make contact with ultimate reality directly and experience it directly and commune with it directly, then you have absolutely no hope of attaining nirvana and Buddhahood. You have no hope of ending your suffering forever. You have no hope of ever being happy in a meaningful way. This is really the acid test of can we ever be happy, really. The world we live in and the world we exist in, it's not possible to be happy in any consistent, sustained way. And we have the delusion that is the normal state of being here. I mean, I grew up with this idea that, I think it's my mother's delusion that somehow I absorbed, but I think it's pretty typical, which is that, well, we're meant to be happy. And happiness is a normal state of affairs in human life, and we just strive to be happy and satisfied and content and fulfilled, and that's what our life is about. That's what our life should be about. We do a good job, and we attain that. We have a good life, and we're satisfied and happy, and we're fulfilled. And then we die. And I think that's perhaps a typical view of what human life is like or is supposed to be like. From a Buddhist perspective, it's utterly untrue. From a Buddhist perspective, it's impossible to be happy as a human being. This is a realm where one cannot be happy by its very definition. It's impossible to be happy in this realm. So, as long as we are living in this realm, our hopes and desires will never be fulfilled. What we get, we'll lose sooner or later. Either sooner or when we die, we lose it all, right? And whether it's the beauty that we seek and chase after, or the money that we seek and we chase after, or the relationships, the material possessions, whatever else it might be, they all escape us and they all slip away from us one way or another. Right? And so from a Buddhist perspective, the only way to get rid of our anger, our jealousy, our fear, our insecurity, our depression, our unhappiness, is to make contact with ultimate reality and to experience ultimate reality. There is no other way to put a permanent end to those things. It's impossible. And it's really, as long as we're existing in the normal, conventional world, we will continue to have afflictions of 84,000 types. We will continue to suffer, and it will just go on and on and on. So, that's our context for talking about the two levels of reality, conventional reality and ultimate reality. Questions?
Yeah. Can you elaborate a little bit more about that? Because I just came out of yoga class. I'm really happy.
I'm feeling really good. You got a buzz on, bringing you down. Sorry. What would you like me to elaborate on?
I don't know. Can you talk about it more? Are you saying that, you know, I can't be happy during the day? Are you saying that happiness is just extremely fleeting until we directly perceive ultimate reality? Is that basically it?
The crux of it is that, I mean, obviously we have moments of satisfaction and joy and pleasure and goodness and happiness in our life, and that's not what I'm saying. That's not what Buddhism is saying. Buddhism says that those are fine and good, all well and good, nothing wrong with it, and, enjoy it by all means. But the point is that all of those things are quite fleeting, and they don't last. And when we're happy, that's great. But then when it fades, and when we're unhappy, typically what we do is collect negativity to try to stop being unhappy. So let's say you go to a great yoga class and doing some wonderful positive thing, and you get a great result and you feel really good, and eventually that changes and you feel insecure or afraid or down, or like you don't have what you want, or you want to get away from somebody that you don't like, and then we yell at somebody or tell them to buzz off, or they're not pretty enough or not smart enough or not likable enough to be around, or whatever it might be. Or we lie and we cheat and we steal or we do whatever it might be, with the idea that somehow that'll bring some happiness back to us. And that's the essence of it. The ignorance is the essence of it. So as long as we are living within the context of deceptive reality, we think that the way to be happy is to do the things that our society tells us to do. You don't want to have problems in your life. Raising a child, having an abortion. Killing doesn't matter. You need to get ahead. And have some money. Screw somebody and then get some money. Lying to somebody. The rules and the laws of this world are corrupt, according to the higher laws of ethics and virtue and purity. And so that's the nut of it. The nut of it is simply that we're happy a percentage of the time, perhaps, whatever that is, varies person to person, according to past deeds. And then in the time that we're not happy, we're trying to do something to be happy, usually. And it's that undertaking activity that where we're trying to do something to be happy, or as often as not, we hurt others. And that collects the cause to be unhappy. And so that's the reason why. The reason why is that by coming in contact with ultimate reality, we see the true laws of the universe which are being virtuous and being good and being ethical produces our happiness. ultimate. And we see that and we experience it firsthand and we know it directly, and therefore we live that. And therefore that puts us on the right path, and that causes us to live in alignment with the higher laws of the universe. And if we don't make contact with that, we don't get a realization of that fact. And lacking the realization that goodness and virtue brings our happiness, we don't behave in a good, virtuous way. We just behave in an ordinary schmucky way, which is whatever our habits are, whatever our impulses are, whatever we were taught as a kid, whatever our parents did to us, whatever our society tells us to do, which is by and large, corrupt. You can't go. You can't go through the day without being exposed to some message from our society that says violence is okay. There's posters all over the subway saying, let's show you violence to entertain you. It's really terrible. If you can step back and take a look at what our society promotes, it promotes hurting other people, promotes being more powerful to make sure you always win and get what you want at anyone else's expense. And on and on. Not to mention consumerism, it's a whole other story. If you drink this beverage, you'll be happy forever. And that's the slogan for Coke. What is it, bottled happiness or open happiness or something like that. And it's like, okay. So we have a lot to cover tonight. Tonight we continue the fight between the different Buddhist schools. And why are the different Buddhist schools fighting? Because that's what people do. No. That's what people do. Even Buddhists, no. We started last week into these debates about what really is, what is the correct description of ultimate reality? What is the correct description of emptiness? What is the correct description of ultimate reality, right? And there are 4 different schools of Buddhism in ancient India, right? And the Buddha taught all 4 of them, right? 3 of them are wrong. If the Buddha is an omniscient being, what's he doing teaching? If you're in sports, it'd be, like batting average of 25% or something, right? 3 out of 4 is, 3 out of 4 wrong or miss or whatever. So, is he just not getting it, or what's going on? Somebody pointed out to me, one of my holy teachers pointed out to me from my last class that I made a reference to the mind-only school as pea brains or something like that. I don't remember. Probably did. I think somebody raised a question about, why is the mind-only school saying this to Brother Bruce? And I said, maybe they're pea brains or something like that, right? And she pointed out to me that's breaking the vow, so I have to apologize. Not supposed to even ingest, disparage other schools or lower schools or traditions. So confess my transgression there. And so in that vein, Shakyamuni Buddha taught 4 different views of emptiness or ultimate reality, 4 different schools, 4 different ways of describing emptiness or ultimate reality, right? And only, 4 different ideas can't all be correct, right? One of them is the right idea. And of course, our school says we have the one. I'm sure the other 3 schools don't think they have the right idea. There's also standing there saying, the Buddha taught this, and the other 3 guys are wrong. Madhyamika is wrong. We're right. My name is correct. So that leads to debates, obviously. And so in the text, in the scriptural text, in the ancient text, they get into it, and they're debating between the mind-only school and the Madhyamika Prasamika school, and duking it out, fighting it out about, well, this view of ultimate reality is correct, and for these reasons, et cetera, et cetera. So we started that last week, and we're going to continue this week. And, it's not just an exercise in mental masturbation. It's the reason that the Buddha taught multiple ideas on emptiness and ultimate reality is that people have different capacities, and being an omniscient being, he could see well into the future and know that there will be different beings of different cultures and societies and mindset, and different ideas help bring people up. So if you teach this school and this idea, you can gain a particular understanding about how ultimate reality really exist. And if you study this other school, you get another idea about how ultimate reality might exist. All of these different schools are attacking our ordinary view of reality and helping us to break down our ordinary perceptions, our ordinary understandings of reality, right? So by studying all four of the schools of ancient India, Buddhism, we get a much more profound insight and understanding of how to approach ultimate reality, how to understand ultimate reality. Because we said what last week? You recall how there are certain things in the lead up to ultimate reality. I won't go into it because we have a lot to cover, but basically it takes a lot of hours of study, right? It takes many, 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 many hours of classroom study, intellectual discourse, reflection, contemplation, to get to a place where we can go, oh, I think I know what they're talking about. I think I get it. The light bulb goes off somehow, you know? You know, the first however many dozens of times that one hears about the nature of reality, the nature of this conventional deceptive reality, the nature of emptiness and ultimate reality, when it's like this confusion and cloudiness and fuzziness and I don't know what they're talking about, or maybe I have some vague idea over more and more classes and explanations and angles of attack, one can get a clearer understanding of what we're talking about, right? And I think most of us are pretty fortunate in that we've already had a lot of hours of classroom learning on the nature of emptiness and the nature of conventional reality through the blessings of the lamas of the past, especially Bodhi Shimon. So anyway, you know, people come up to me quite often, occasionally people come up to me and say, you know, there are self-existent things. There are 5 self-existent things. And Geshe Michael gets it wrong when he teaches that there are no self-existent things, you know? And, you know, he taught this one idea and it was wrong. I always kind of go like, which school were you in? According to which school of Buddhism? You know, there are 4 schools of Buddhism. And this is just Tibetan. Well, this is ancient India, but anyway. There are 4 main schools of Buddhism in ancient India. And they have different ideas about a lot of things. So, you know, it always behooves us to be aware of the hat that we're wearing and what perspective we're taking when we talk about these things and we analyze these things, right? Okay, so we get into this, we start to get into these debates, these arguments to help us understand emptiness better. The 3 lower schools have certain ideas about emptiness. They have a certain presentation, a certain understanding of ultimate reality, right? They complain about the highest school, which is us, right? Majjhimika Prasangika had on. The Majjhimika Prasangika school talks about the nature of ultimate reality. And the lower schools pick a fight, they have a problem with it. And they don't like it, right? The higher school says nothing has a nature of its own, right? So just look at this in an ordinary way. Forget about its ultimate reality. Don't think about the emptiness of this thing, okay? Just look at this pen. Right? Just look at it in an ordinary, unexamined, normal way. Look at it and think whatever you normally think, right? Take a moment. I think it's a marker, right? Expo, dry erase. Okay. Now, take a moment and think about it without imputation. You know, what you see here is a cylinder. You see some white, you see some black, you see some shapes, you see some divisions, right? If somebody from 500 years ago walked into the room and they didn't have dry erase board markers, you would think dry erase board markers. So look at this thing without imputing any name to it. Just look at it from the perspective of shapes and colors, and let your mind take it in and perceive it without naming it anything, without calling it anything, and just taking in, just look at it with your eyes and take in shapes and colors. Leave off the conceptualization that goes with that. Just take a moment to do that. Not hard, right? It's pretty straightforward. Okay, now go back to putting a name on it, imputing a name on it. Pretty straightforward, right? You can think of it one way, you can think of it the other. You can think of it as a cylinder, a stick, a white and black object, without putting the name dry erase board marker on it, or you can think of it as exactly whatever else you want. Very straightforward. So,
How do you stop? Like I found myself trying to think of what it looks like. Okay, so it's not a very marker, but it kind of looks like, what does it look like?
Freedom Tower.
Well, you know, I couldn't stop thinking about, oh, it looks like this toy that my daughter used to have, or it's like my mind just wouldn't, it's like my mind wouldn't accept it, so, oh, it's white and there's a black cap on it.
Yeah, so that's the central point, isn't it? Central point is,
labeling.
like, what is your eyeball capable of? What function does your eyeball perform? Your eyeball's rods and cones, photons, colors, right? Your eye is only capable of perceiving black and white, tonality, whatever else. Your eye is not capable of perceiving a pen, or the Freedom Tower, or anything else. Right? I mean, the eyeball does not function to perceive a pen. It just isn't made for that. Right? It's just a transmitting organ. Right? It's just an organ that transmits data and nerve impulses. The concept pen, the identity pen, comes from somewhere else, which you've identified as your mind. Well, the mind is going to want to put something on. And so you're watching this process now. You've just described this process, watching your mind wanting to put something on. Right? So the eyeball is doing its job of picking up the data and transmitting it. And then you're watching your mind go, I'm going to call it something. No, don't call it anything. I want to call it something. No, don't call it anything. You know? Right? That's exactly what we're talking about, right? So we have the ability to shift what we call it or what we don't call it, or turn it on or turn it off, perhaps, right? And that's what it means to say that this pen has no nature, right? There is no pen coming from this. There is no penness here, right? That's coming from you. That's coming from your mind, or the Freedom Tower, or whatever. The pen doesn't have any identity. There's no identity of pen here. There is no existence of pen here. There is no nature of pen here. There's no pen here. There's something here. You know, there's a cylinder, there's colors, there's shapes, there's data, there's a basis for sense perceptions, right? There's no pen. There's no pen. You supply that. Or a Freedom Tower, or whatever else you put supply, right? Or a stick, or whatever the case might be. So that's what it means to say that things have no nature of their own, right? Things are empty of a nature, okay? So its penness is imputed. Like, you are forcing this to be a pen. Your mind calls this a pen, and you force the identity of pen on this. It's like you lay the pen trip on this thing, right? It's like your partner, right? If you got a partner, or parent, or whatever, like, whatever the trip is, you're laying it on them, right? It's like, it's not there from their side, okay? You know, we lay pen on this thing. And it's like, if you got a partner, you lay whatever it is, you lay on the partner too, in the same way. You know, it's like, oh, they're this enough, they're not that enough, they are, you know, they're hot, they're cold, it's exactly the same thing, right? So there's no identity from their side, there's no anything from their side. You know, we are imputing everything. We are supplying all of the naming and definition and identity and liking and disliking, all of the constructs and all the conceptualizations are supplied by us onto the basis. Yeah.
Does that mean we can never be wrong with something you don't really know what it is, if it's really dark, and rather than be frustrated with, I'm not really sure what that is it something scary or not scary, then are you wrong to choose whatever you choose and go with it?
Right. It's like you're
driving.
driving.
We have the desire that we're either frustrated that we don't know what it is, and we can accept at least we're going to pretend we know what it is.
Yeah, it's like you're driving down the road and you see something go across the road, and you think it's a squirrel and it's a leaf, or whatever, something, whatever it is.
And then you can go with a better story.
Yeah, so that's course 4, the nature of valid perception. We did a course on the nature of perception and what is a valid perception and what is not a valid perception. And basically a valid perception is defined as anything which appears to an unimpeded, sort of unaffected state of mind, a normal state of mind. So we are all having valid perceptions all day long. If I'm pissed off, it's a valid perception for me. If I see something falling and I perceive it as, a person, and it turns out to be, a dummy that was thrown out the window, it's a valid perception for me. And then I walk over and I see the dummy on the ground, and that's a valid perception for me, And so maybe there's an element of doubt in our mind. All of those things are valid perceptions. So We may be wrong, but it doesn't mean it wasn't a valid perception. So, but that's a whole 12 classes on that.
Right.
Check out course 4. You can get the tapes. You can get it online. Okay. So the Madhyamikas say that this is like an illusion. Okay. It's unreal in a way. It's unreal in what way? The mind grasps to it as existing over here. The mind says it's really right here. It exists right here. This is it. This is its locus of existence. This is its locus of identity. This is its locus of being. The pen is here, and only here, and nowhere but here. I got nothing to do with it. It's just a pen over there, okay? Leave me alone. It's your fault that the dishes are dirty, not mine. Damn it, you know. Well, I digress. I'm married. I'll stick with inanimate objects, okay? So, what was that? I had to wait for my wife. I almost didn't make class because my wife was late getting home from work. I was like, oh man, it's like 10 to 7. She's not home yet. I'm in Brooklyn. Oh. Anyway, that was never mind. So, when we say that the pen is like an illusion, the pen is unreal, that's what Madhyamika is referring to. We think it's over here, and it's not really. We're supplying. It's like Chris is over there, pen's over here. There is a connection. There is something happening over there that relates to this over here, which is an integral part of what's going on over here. But we don't perceive things that way. We don't relate to things that way. And so that's what Buddhism means when it says something is like an illusion. Okay, we think it exists one way, but it doesn't really. It exists almost in the opposite fashion that we think it exists, right? Okay, so the penness comes from you, all right? Whether it's, if a dog or a bird or an ant or an aborigine comes in here, they're not going to say it's a pen, right? If this had the identity of pen, if this radiated the identity of pen, any being that ever saw it would pick up that message and that signal and then go, oh, there's a pen. I mean, the fact that we can't go anywhere in the world and identify everything we ever meet and encounter is proof that things aren't self-existent. Because you go to a new town and you'd be like, oh, it's the Takahashi building, doesn't need a sign, it has its identity, it's radiating, and I just had to go near it and I picked it up, Oh, that's the, 69th Street subway entrance. It doesn't need a sign because, that's its nature, and I just pick it up when I go near it. Things don't exist that way. Things don't radiate their nature to us. We have to understand them. We have to comprehend them. We have to conceptualize them. We have to give it to it. We have to give that nature and identity to it. Okay? So that's what it means when it says that when we say that things are like an illusion, they're unreal in a way. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What about for water or for the elements? I mean, how does that translate with the pen?
So if you take water, for example, you could say water is, you could define water in a lot of different ways. Fluid, wet, flowing. So, yeah, ice cubes, snowflakes.
Avalanche.
Yeah, I mean, water can be a lot of different things, right? And salt water, fresh water, but I'm not sure exactly what your question is. Is your question that would everyone call water water, and water has the nature of water?
Yeah, I mean, does it have a nature of itself? I mean, since it's something that in any time or anywhere,
everyone drinks it and everyone needs it.
Yeah, and everyone would recognize it as.
So I would ask you, if a dinosaur went over to the pool and drank, would it think, I'm drinking water? I should not. I don't know. So does that stuff? I mean, because there is some wet, fluid, liquid thing there, which can be drunk and cause the body to be sustained, right? But
well, it's not water; it's pool water. Just like there's like other drinks that are very similar to water, clear, but they're not water because it's just a clear liquid.
Yeah.
You could put a label like poop in it.
Yeah. So you have to remember how we're defining things. You see, there is something there. We're not saying it doesn't exist. We're not saying there's nothing there. We're saying that what is there and the nature of what is there and the identity of what is there is defined by us. Right? So, according to Buddhism, there are beings in realms which experience water as a suffering thing. Like there are beings called craving spirits according to Buddhism worldview. And those beings, because of the nature of their karma they've collected in the past, their minds function and perceive everything that they try to consume as painful and suffering. So they have been particularly stingy and collected this really miserly, miserable karma from the past. And so they, when they are reborn into a world and into a realm and into a dimension where they can never be satisfied. So they might see a liquid that looks satisfying. Maybe it appears to them to be water, and then when they approach it, it's actually molten fire or pus or blood or that something that they think is pleasant to drink, and they drink it and it burns their throat on the way down. So, Buddhist cosmology, water only exists according to the perceiver. Like a nice glass of water would be satisfying to us. It would be a deadly, drowning liquid for a fly to land. So it's not that there's not something there. There is something there, but it has a different function for different beings and different minds and different perceivers. It has a different nature and a different identity to different minds and different perceivers. It doesn't have a nature of its own. You can say, is water there? Sure, I drink it. Does it have a nature of its own? Does it have a fixed identity? It doesn't have a fixed nature. Does it exist one way only? Is it self-existent? So when Buddhism talks about things being an illusion, it's saying that it doesn't exist the way you think it does, which is water is only water, and it only has one nature and one identity, and water serves to keep you alive, and water is this lovely thing you drink, and on and on and on. Yeah.
I think her question was phrased, does water exist for everybody? I think that's what the question was. And I would just expound on John's excellent answer is that it exists by convention for everybody.
Well, no, it doesn't exist by convention for everybody. People die in the desert for lack of water.
Right, but the label water, similar to like we used last week, the ACI sign and stop for everybody, right? So
In our society.
right. Yeah. So that the term water, or the concept of label water, might exist for everybody, which I think was her question.
Do you mean people or all sentient beings?
Yeah, you have to.
Right, just people.
Yeah.
For someone that's never seen the ocean before, though, I don't know if they even see that as water.
They would have a
When I
concept
see
of
it as the ocean, I don't.
Well, you have the name and the term. So when you see this is the whole study of naming and projection and convention. If you don't name it, does it exist?
And the key
How
word that
does it exist?
I just wish to expound on her use of the word everybody. And things do exist in a sense for everybody by convention.
But what if you're born and then you die before you even get to see water? What if that's a very definitive answer. Like children that come out and are born and they literally die within days before they they're beings and there's no. I think that's a very definitive statement to say that it exists
I'm just
for everybody.
trying to help her with the concept of everybody and the idea of things can exist with a label that we agree on conventionally.
Buddhism is
for everybody.
Buddhism is a big picture kind of thing. When you start to talk about things, you really have to zoom out and the big picture. What are all the realms? What are all the beings of all the realms? It's not just humans. I mean, it's not just even humans and animals and insects.
So that makes my time move.
It's
like you said it.
I'm sorry.
I mean, in hell realms, I don't think there's one. I mean, look, there's hot hells and there's cold hells in the Buddhist system. Cold hells you have ice, and and the hot hells you have fire. So I don't think there's water and liquid and that hot hell realms. So I don't know. So we have to really kind of step back and say, how are we conceiving of it? How are we naming it? What's the paradigm? What's the convention? And that's another proof of the lack of self-existence, or lack of concrete identity. Because as you zoom out, you see the identity breaks down. You see the naming convention breaks down. And I mean, it was Arya Nagarjuna who did a long treatise on the nature of language, where he said, how is it that we hear words, and we hear these sounds and these utterances, they have meaning? How did this meaning derive from these sounds and utterances? I mean, if I go to Thailand and I hear Thai, it means absolutely nothing to me. Or, any other country in the world for that matter. I mean, there are certain sounds that have meaning to me. Most sounds don't, So, I mean, it becomes this very profound topic of exploration.
Yeah, what's the Thai word for water?
I don't know.
Because in Thailand, a baby gets born and the baby knows what that is, but I don't know what it is because I don't speak Thai.
But I don't think if the baby needed to live and it was there, no one was doing it, so I'm not sure if they're gonna get to dog. I don't know if anyone's done that before.
I don't encourage you either, so. All right, please say Yuma.
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 Yuma means illusion. Maya in Sanskrit. Illusion. So, I mean, look, think of a movie as an illusion, right? We go sit in the theater, and for an hour and a half, we think it's real. If you're in a good movie, right? Who goes to a movie to sit back and go like, yeah, I don't believe any of this, right? Right? It's like, this is so lame. You're sitting back totally disengaged, going, that hat's, I don't get a movie, right? So, I mean, it's like you go to a war movie, like these guys put on their soldier costumes, they get their machine guns and their cannons and they're blowing each other up, right? And it seems real, and we're like experiencing it that way. But then, in reality, they're like having lunch together in the cantina between scenes, right? They're not blowing each other up. They're like pals who are chatting and going out to dinner together. So I mean, the reality and illusion are very different experiences, right? So, all right. So let's see. Please say Nang. Sul, Dangne, Sul, Mitumpa. So, Nang means appear. Sul means the way. Nang Sul means the way something appears. Dang means and. Nate Sul means the way the thing really is, the way it exists. And Mitumpa means inconsistent. The way it appears and the way it really is are inconsistent with each other. Okay? The way things look and the way they really are not the same. Okay? So the ultimate meaning of dependent origination is that your eye can see colors and shapes. Okay? Your mind makes it into a picture, which you then project back out onto the basis and think that it's really out there. Right? You think this thing really exists there. Yeah? So, we're synthesizing. I mean, you take anything and you can say, oh, look at that picture frame, I mean, all I can see from here is a gold edge, a little highlight, a straight line of a highlight, a little round corner there. I see a black thing going like this. And I just made it into a picture frame based on a black line going like that, a gold line going like that with a little tonality, And so I'm picking up some visual clues, right? And my mind is filling in the rest and turning it into a picture frame. And that picture frame was created by me in my mind and imputed onto those bits of data that I took in, right? Those bits of information that I took in. So, there's just a bunch of colors and shapes there, and then there's a picture frame in my mind. Somewhere in the back of my mind, a little picture frame pops up. Ding, picture frame. And then I project it onto the thing. There are a few clues. Can I see the front of the picture frame? No. Can I see the back of the picture frame? No. Can I see the top of the picture frame? No. Can I see the bottom of the picture frame? No. I can just see maybe 10% of the picture frame, and I'm calling it a picture frame, right? It's true of everything. can you, I mean, if you look at this again, you say it's a pen. Can you see the front of this and the back of this at the same time? No. Can you see the top and bottom at the same time? No. Can you see the inside and outside at the same time? No. How do you even know what's really there? How do you know that there's something over here? How do you know there's something inside? How do you know that it writes? How do you know there's not like a little exploding device? You know, I mean, there are all sorts of possibilities. The point is that the mind takes some clues. We take in some data. That data provides clues and bits of information, which the mind then takes those sketchy bits of information and assembles them into a reality and an identity. You know, I mean, like I'm looking at Chris. I assume he's got a back. I'm making a back. You know, I'm thinking he's got like some depth to him. I can't see any depth. He's looking kind of flat, but I'm thinking like his knees are in front of his chest, and you know, all this is going on in the mind, and we're not even paying attention. We're not even aware of it. You know, we can't perceive it directly. It's all just imputed. It's all created and conceived, but we're not going through life that way. You know, we're not going through life thinking, anyway, I can go on and on, right? Okay. So that's the meaning of dependent origination, is that all we're really doing is seeing some colors and shapes, and the mind is making it into a complete, whole, holistic picture and identity. There's a full, complete Chris there. There's a full, complete picture over there, right? So we're watching these pictures all life long and mistaking them for reality. We're going through our entire life mistaking all these little pictures that we made for our reality. We're going like, Chris is real. Chris is real. Picture frame is real. You know? But in fact, I supplied the whole thing. It's not even there from its own side. I supplied the identity. I supplied the nature. It's the whole construct of what the thing is.
Yeah, I can't verify my own back either.
You know, a little bit of
But
it.
I can't see it.
Yeah.
You could feel something.
But
And
your
I
mind
can call
comes
it
up
back.
with the back, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Your mind is saying, yeah, I got a back. Yeah, that's how it's the nature of it, right? It's the meaning of dependent origination. That's what dependent origination is that we mistake all these pictures for the real thing. I mean, the picture that we made in our mind of this complete, whole, functioning thing, lacking nothing, you know, is from our mind. It's created by our mind. And we think it's really here. The whole complete functioning thing is really here. And it's not. It's just our mind making pictures, bless you, our mind making pictures. And our entire life is spent watching the pictures that our mind makes. You know, and engaging the pictures that our mind makes and reacting to the pictures that our mind makes. And sadly, that's how we.
And it goes the same with all senses too, though, right?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Smells and
for sure. Yeah, I mean, we're mainly visual beings. We isolated on the visual sense, but it's true of all of all sensory inputs of every kind. Yeah. I mean, it's like, you know, it's like if you had your eyes closed and you're feeling something, trying to figure out what you're feeling. Or something's touching you in your eye, in a dark room, and something's touching you, and you're going like, what is that? Something touching me. I feel something touching me. Is that a spider crawling at me? Is that like a finger touching me? Yeah, it's just like that. And you see your mind is trying to make a picture. And it's a bit of a digression, you know. I mean, and so this is normal reality, right? But what happens when we get sensory input and we can't come up with a good explanation and a good picture? Like we get sensory input.
it's scary.
Yeah, right? I mean, you start to get this sensory input and it's just like, what was that?
Typically, the strength books say at that confluence of events, you have two choices. You can experience anxiety, you just understand that, or you can become curious. Yeah, they suggest curious.
And then the mind wants to put a name on it. The mind wants to put an identity on it. The mind wants to have an explanation for it, typically.
Right.
So then what? The mind is going like, I gotta call that something. I mean, so even if you go the curious route rather than the anxious route, you're curious and you're like, well, what do I call it? How do I describe it? How do I define it? What's the picture that goes with it? What's the nature, the name? Was it a ghost? Was it a thief? Was it you know, say the mind is constantly going, and then you reach this point of perhaps you can't come up with any other idea or definition or picture other than some thing which is not normal.
At that point, they suggest that you relax and say that I'm about to learn something new.
Perfect. And so you see that expands one's perception. That expands one's construct. That expands one's one's reality construct. And so, you know, in a normal human reality, I mean, and this is really a digression, I'm sorry. But, you know, in a normal human life, you know, we have our hard lines about what is a normal reality construct, right? And so when we start to have a class and we start to talk about another level of reality and other realms of being and, you know, craving spirits and hell realms and other realms that we can't see and higher realms, and you kind of go like, okay, I hear you, maybe it's true, maybe it's not, which you shouldn't buy it unless you can verify it, as Buddhism says. But what happens then when things start to happen? Where you get like, that wasn't normal. Is that another realm? Was that a pig from another realm? Was that an experience from another realm? Was that, what the hell was that? Well, then we start to go like, sorry man, that was too weird. It's like, never mind. Like that happened to my dad. My dad, he's in the 80s. And he wanted to meditate, so he started to meditate a lot. I mean, he's retired, you know, he had a lot of time on his hands, so he started meditating. And then something happened, and it freaked him out. He stopped meditating. He's like, I don't know, I started seeing stuff. It was just like, it's like I just couldn't deal with it. I stopped meditating. I refused to meditate. You know? So, I mean, because then we perceive things which are not normal for this realm, because maybe there are other things we can perceive if we go beyond ordinary limited senses. I don't know why I got into this. We gotta get back to the topic. Interesting. So we're talking about constructs. That's how we got into this. All right. The meaning of illusion, right? The meaning of illusion is that a bunch of colors and shapes which the mind organizes into a pen or a wall or a drawing, and they're not really those things independent of the mind's organizing them as such. And that's what we mean when we talk about illusion. Okay, there's a more profound meaning of Juma, of illusion, in Buddhism, and that refers to having the direct experience of ultimate reality and emptiness, where one has a direct perception of ultimate reality, one is communing with ultimate reality in its pure ultimate state. And then one comes out of that experience, one comes down from that realm and that experience. And one is perceiving with one's ordinary senses in this realm, then things that really appear as an illusion. To have a direct experience of ultimate reality, one's withdrawn, the mind is withdrawn from the ordinary senses, and the mind is actually in a different realm. So one experiences ultimate reality mentally that way. And then when the mind re-engages the senses, and that happens in a deep state of meditation. And so when the mind re-engages the senses, and you open your eyes and you're back to normal in this realm, you know that everything you're seeing is false and untrue. You know that the way that you're perceiving with your mind and your senses is inconsistent with ultimate reality. And so that everything appears to you as an illusion, and it is an illusion, because it's false according to ultimate reality. So that's a deeper and more profound meaning of illusion. You understand that every single thought that you've had in your entire existence was mistaken. Every single thought you ever thought in your entire existence was incorrect and was inaccurate. Because every single thought you think is about self-existent objects and beings. I'm here, you're there. The interaction is what it is. It's all happening from its own side. You know, it's almost impossible for us as unenlightened beings to not perceive things that way.
That seems to be the crux of that, is that the reason why we see it as an illusion after we perceive ultimate reality is that we see that the way that the mind is trying to apprehend phenomena as self-existent is incorrect. So we're directly experiencing that.
Yeah, and so, you know, we're born every life after life after life. We're born, it's an inborn tendency to see things as self-existent, right? As existing from their own self. That is the final mental affliction that you eliminate before you attain nirvana. That's the most subtle mental affliction. So we get rid of anger and jealousy and all the other cruder mental afflictions. And the last mental affliction that we eliminate before attaining nirvana is the tendency to see things as self-existent. And when you eliminate the tendency to see things as self-existent, then you attain nirvana.
I'm ready, baby.
Bring it on.
Let's go.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Meditate tonight. Be there, it's great. So, can we stop it? No. I mean, even if you have a direct experience of ultimate reality, and you come out of that deep meditative absorption, you're still seeing things as self-existent. You can't stop yourself. You know it's false. You know it's an illusion. You know it's incorrect. You can't stop yourself. Those perceptions are forced upon you by your past karma, by the nature of your mind and how your mind functions. And we have a mind and we have senses which function in a particular way. If only we could say, I just decided that my mind and my senses should function differently. Thank you very much. And as of now, I'll see everything differently than I do. Wouldn't life be grand? Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. We can't just will that our perceptions are going to shift into different faculties. Our mind is going to process everything differently. It takes a lot of work and a lot of effort to cause our mind to process the data differently. And that's what spiritual practice is about from a Buddhist perspective. Our spiritual practice is all about causing our mind to process information differently in a purer, higher, more virtuous way, so that we perceive ourselves and our reality as a better one, as a completely joyous, ecstatic, paradisical experience. So when we can cause our mind at a base level to function differently, to process the data differently, we'll experience our world and ourselves differently. Right? Perception is reality. Simple, right? My perception is my reality. What else do you need to know? My mind causes my perception. If I can cause my mind to perceive reality as nothing but great, that will be my reality. End of story. How do I get my mind to perceive everything is really great? Drugs? Well, try it. It's been tried, It works for a little while, right? Alcohol? Well, works even maybe not so good. I mean, there's lots of things that we try to get our mind to experience reality as great. But
I'm sorry, can you use the word you perceive reality as perhaps more accurately rather than great?
Sorry, say again?
Can you interchange the word you perceive reality more accurately?
Well, that's interesting because it goes back to valid perception, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So this is my valid perception right now, and this is accurate for me right now.
Correct.
It's not what I want. It's not what I want to perceive, but it is my accurate, valid reality. So I would like my accurate, valid reality to be great, even if it isn't. You know what I mean?
That begs the question, great, and the definition of great may mean that you're actually in step with what's going on around you, right? Is the term aren't we supposed to be omniscient at some point?
Sure.
Which would lead us to the idea of being in step with doing what's right at the right time.
I speak very loosely, and maybe I should. I mean, it's one of my faults is that I'm very loose with my speech, and when we're speaking, and I'm speaking very colloquially, when we're speaking about these things from a Buddhist perspective, what we're really talking about is attaining a state where we are in paradise, where we have ended all of our suffering forever, and where we have the capacity to help all other beings and their suffering forever, which is the omniscience component, right? And the ability to emanate. So we have the mind and the body of an enlightened being. So I speak very loosely when I say I want to, or we want to have a great existence or a great outcome. I mean, really, what I want and what I hope all aspire to is to attain a state where we are enlightened, which means that our mind is in highest bliss continuously, with omniscience and with the ability to emanate and help every other living being. So I'm just putting the handle great on that as a really sloppy loose.
That is great. It's fabulous. Oh.
Yeah, it's great.
You make no afflictions. I think that's pretty great.
But it's also imprecise.
Right.
So So yeah, thank you.
Question. Do the teachings actually say that it's an inborn tendency to perceive this way?
Every sentient being is born with the self-existent view of ignorance. Even a roach. The scriptures say that every sentient being which is born, which is not enlightened, grasps at things as self-existent. the mind, the being's mind grasps and thinks of something that's being there for this lifetime. Oh.
John, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
As far as, I was just thinking about this when you were talking. So, if one were to reach nirvana, is it you're assuming that that person will be in a happier state because you're no longer collecting around. You've ended having afflictions for one, right? But you also have a sense of, you also see the pain and suffering. So how does that, like is my lack of having ultimate happiness due to the fact that it's my afflictions that's creating that situation? If that were to cease to exist, would I actually be in an ultimately happy mode all the time? Even though I can see the pain and suffering in the world?
So what is the definition of nirvana? It's the permanent end of our mental afflictions, of all of our mental afflictions, as a result of experiencing mental struggle.
Right.
Right? So, what is a mental affliction? It's the mind being disturbed in any way. The slightest, infinitesimally small disturbance of the mind, right? Is an affliction. So by definition, nirvana is a state where the mind is not disturbed by anything. Not disrupted, disturbed, or bothered by anything.
Right.
But you can still see the pain and suffering.
But once you see I think once you see emptiness, you understand that that pain and suffering has already been caused. There was an action that caused the result. So you know it can end. You've seen the end. You know it's real. So why would it upset you? It's like if you get angry at somebody for not doing the dishes or for being late, you're getting angry at something that's already happened. If you can look at it and say, this bad event is now gone. Done.
Right.
It's over. The person who's yelling at me, it's done. It's over. That bad karma is now gone. And you react to it without any negative emotion, it won't. It won't make you unhappy.
Right, but what I'm wondering is, does one become, is there a sense of joy that one, like, we have this sense of like we peak, right, when we have like a more joy than not. When we reach a state of nirvana, does that being kind of have a steadfast, even keel? Not that they don't.
Is it flat? Is it sort of
a bit
flat
flat
state?
because you kind of are coasting? Like, I mean, but
Well, think of it from a karmic perspective, right? There's negative karma, neutral karma, and virtuous karma, right? So by definition, any kind of suffering and affliction comes from negative karma that you collect, right? So you eliminate all that, right? Because otherwise you wouldn't be in nirvana. You can't be in nirvana if you've got negative karma to ripen upon you, because then you have some problem, right? So by definition, there's no negative karma in nirvana. So that leaves neutral karma and good karma. So, when you collect ultimately good karma, you attain enlightenment. So we talk about the collection of wisdom and the collection of merit. When you collect enough of certain types of virtue, then you have, a physical body, physical body, which can end, etc., etc. So according to the nature of the karma that one collects, one's in nirvana or enlightenment or whatever. So, nirvana and enlightenment are not this state where you only have neutral karma. Right? Wouldn't make any sense. Right? Yeah. Tonight's actually a very difficult class. I mean, a lot to cover, so I should probably move on. But talking about karma, I mean, so if you talk about having a cup of tea, for example, right? And you enjoy the cup of tea as a result of what? Good karma. Right? I mean, if you have a cup of tea and you don't like the tea, it's a result of bad karma, right? If you go to pick up your cup of tea and it's hot, and you spill it on yourself and you burn yourself, then it's worse karma, right? I mean, maybe you enjoyed the first sip and then you spilled it and burned yourself. So what happened? The good karma wore out and the negative karma ripened. And this is the nature of all things, right? Everything is caused. All perceptions arise, all experiences arise from karmic ripeness, right? And so there's this whole study of how do we cause our good karmas to ripen more quickly And how do we cause our negative karmas to be delayed in ripening? You know, it's like there's a queue, there's a karmic queue of things waiting to ripen. And we want the good stuff to ripen upon us to have a better existence, and we want the bad stuff to not ripen upon us to have a better existence, right? So that, you know, that's the idea of karmic purification, where you can sort of delay a karma or weaken a karma or even cause the karma not to ripen, right? Because things are empty, you know, the cup of tea can either be a good experience or a bad experience or a neutral experience, or it can change from one to the other because things are empty of self-existence. If that cup of tea was only a good thing from its one side, it could never hurt me. Right? It can only be a pleasant experience. But because it's an empty basis, which I'm experiencing according to karma, right? It could be anything. And that is why we're talking about emptiness. You know, if you want to have a cup of tea, which is a pleasant cup of tea, you know, then do virtue. If you want to have, you know, a cup which is a nectar of immortality, you know, which gives you mind-blowing bliss, you know, then study compassion and wisdom and virtue and cause that cup of tea to be something which is out of this world. You know? And that's the point of talking about all this, and that's the point of studying all this, is that because things are empty of self-existence, it can be anything. It can manifest as anything, according to the karma that we collect and according to our mind, right, and our perception. So we're studying these things, we're going into these debates so that we can understand that things, that this is truly empty. And this could be a source of ecstatic bliss to me just by looking at it. You know, this could be this amazing thing that by looking at it, I'm like, it's like when you're stoned, I guess, you know, wow. That's amazing, you know, right, or something, you know, I don't know. You know, you don't have to be stoned, you just kind of look at it and you go, oh my God, I can't believe it, it's incredible, right? That's the perception we're at. And if your mind were functioning that way because of karma, not because of drugs, that would be your world, all within your reality, for as long as those karmas were right, or had ripened, right? So that's why we're talking about these things. And, you know, it's possible because things are empty. And that's the point, right? All right. So, okay. So Madhyamikas are saying things are an illusion because they don't have any nature of their own. The pen's not a pen from its own side. It doesn't have any nature of being a pen, and in that way it's unreal. This is unreal in that it's an illusion and that it doesn't have a nature of its own. Right? All right. So the other three schools of Buddhism have a problem with that. And they say, you know, Mr. Madhyamika, that's crazy. They say, things are real. And Madhyamika says, why? And they say, because you can write with it. Of course it's a pen, you write with it. Duh. You know? So, it functions as a pen. They're called functionalists. We said the other three schools are called functionalists, right? Abhidharma, mind-only, etc. They're called functionalists, and these are the other three schools of Buddhism, of ancient Buddhism. They believe that if something functions and works, that it's real, that it exists, that it's not an illusion. Okay? So they have a disagreement with Madhyamika in that way. And so you've got to think about this from the perspective of what is the true nature of the thing that's here? What is the higher identity of the thing that's here? And that's really what we're getting to, right? Try to look at it in that context. We're saying, because it's real, it works. Madhyamika is saying, because it's unreal, it works. Madhyamika is saying, it isn't real, therefore it can function as a pen. And the functionalists are saying, it's real, therefore it functions as a pen. So they're kind of the opposite of each other, aren't they? Coming at it from opposite ends. The functionalists are saying, as long as you can write with it, you have to admit that it's real. And the Madhyamikas are saying, the only reason you can write with it is because it's empty and it's unreal. And your karma forces you to be able to write with it. So they're not on the same page, right? Is that, you got it so far? Okay, good. Good. So, everything around us is a production of our own mind. The ripening of the seeds in our mind. This room is a production of your mind. I am a production of your mind. You know, whether you like what I'm saying or don't like what I'm saying, whether you're bored or whether you're enthralled, is a production of your mind. Okay? Whether you get it or you don't get it, if it's fuzzy, if it's clear, all a function of your mind. Right? Not coming from you. Sorry. It's not real. Does it work? Yes. So, you know, everybody here functions, right? We eat, we sleep, we go to work, you know, take the subway, have a relationship. So, everybody around you works. It functions. It's okay. You know. Do they exist in the way that we think they exist? No. They are not self-existent. This room is not self-existent. The people in the room are not self-existent. The jobs are not self-existent. Getting on the subway, none of it exists from its own side. It's all a production of our mind and karma. Manifest from our mind and karma, right? And in that regard, it's unreal. It's an illusion. It doesn't exist from its own side. That's Mijna, right? It's not what you expect. Right? It's unreal in that it's not what you expect. You would think it's self-existent, but it's not. Okay? Like that. All right? So, you know, you like the people around you, it's your good karma. If you don't like the people around you, you get some negative karma. Okay? You know, it's like, it's not a function of the people. It's not a function of the job. That's why, you know, people change jobs, right? This is like, I'm tired of these people. I'm tired of this crap. I'm tired of these problems. I'm quitting and going to another company. Guess what? No. Get to the next company and you find the same stuff. Different faces, different clothes. SSDD, right? We take it with us. It's not coming from the company. It's not coming from the people, right? We carry our karma with us. So we carry the karma from our last job to our new job. It's very interesting to see it. So anyway, tonight we have to talk about the mind-only school and their presentation of how things really exist. I think we should take a break first, though. Let's have a quick break because you know the mind-only school gets a little heavy. This is the point in the monastery where they lose a lot of monks. There were about 60. Geshe Michael said there were about 60 monks in his class when he started, and 3 graduated. So when you start to get into this topic, that's where they start to lose a lot of people. So please come back.
Because it's mind only.
Have some snacks. Come back. Yeah. Yeah.